TheorySabers.com.
This is going to be a very controversial one, and it's making the rounds on the internet. I talked about it briefly in the live stream, but sit back, relax, clip it, and post it on Twitter if you want, because we all know that's going to happen anyways. As soon as I start talking about this, leave a like and visit TheorySabers.com. We got a big sale going on right now. Disney admits Marvel and Star Wars drove away men, now scrambling to win them back. Oh boy. Variety, of all places, reports that Disney executives are now actively pressuring creatives for new movies to lure back Gen Z men, be all men, ages 13 to 28, after Marvel and Lucasfilm have shed audiences at an alarming rate. I have a lot to say about this. The headline should actually be all men, not just Gen Z. I agree. Despite once being billion-dollar engines, Star Wars hasn't released a film in 7 years, and Marvel's latest Fantastic Four is bombing, which follows a string of MCU bombs from Kevin Feige, including Thunderbolts and Captain America Brave New World, including this freaking abomination, which was horrible. I have a lot to say, so let's just read this and get to it. It's all been unfolding exactly as I first... According to a report, Disney CEO Bob Iger claims the focus now is on original IP, rather, yeah, because you freaking destroyed it all. No wonder he wants to focus on original stuff, because he liquefied it. It's burned everything to the ground. Original IP rather than endless Marvel and Star Wars sequels and reboots. If only they knew the gold mine they were sitting on, all the stories that they could make. Well, anyways, too bad they don't. We don't have source material. But the irony isn't lost on fans, especially when Disney itself made Marvel and Star Wars into cultural zombies through forced messaging and by alienating and blaming the very audience that made them global phenomena. Why did you have to show this? I forgot about this. Amanda Stenberg blames fans for the Acolyte cancellation. Yeah, it was really our fault. Yeah. As Nerdrotic points out in his video, the signs were there as far back as The Last Jedi. So look, I'm going to leave it on there just to trigger everyone, including myself. Actually, I can't do it. I can't. Right. Anyways, I'll leave it on this. It's less triggering. So, look, 100%, I do feel like Disney has really shit the bed and really poked fun at men in movies and as fans for many, many years now. Do you remember the Star Wars show, how the Andy Gutierrez reporter or whatever lady, she was, after The Last Jedi, she was drinking out of a cup that said Luke fanboy tears? Do you remember how they completely sidelined Luke and made him a emasculated, castrated dude that was essentially more or less a failure, a runaway? He gave up, he cut himself off from the Force, he abandoned his sister and his friends. You remember how Han Solo was a war hero in Return of the Jedi, came back later on, 27 years later or so, as a deadbeat father? Boba Fett, arguably one of the most masculine masked characters in Star Wars, is running out with his robe, doing his robe. What's going on? What happened? Sidelined by Fennec Shand. The Mandalorian, sidelined by Bo-Katan. Obi-Wan Kenobi, sidelined by Reva. But we didn't like Obi-Wan because Reva is black, right? No. We didn't like The Force Awakens or the sequel trilogy because Rey's a girl. Or as Freddie Prinze Jr. said, because the Millennium Falcon was given to a girl. We didn't like Boba Fett. Well, I don't really think anyone argued why we didn't like Boba Fett. But you kind of have to look at how they have really positioned a lot of the men in Star Wars. And, not, even outside of Star Wars, in Marvel. Like, look what they've done with a lot of the men. It wasn't like it was in the first few phases where men were masculine. And this didn't mean that they were telling women to go into the kitchen. It meant that male characters could still be badass male characters that were well-written, masculine, and got the job done with a sense of responsibility and care. And they also could have female characters that weren't always a damsel in distress. They weren't weak characters. They were strong, badass characters in their own right. And together, you have synergy and you make a great story that comes together. But when you're dumbing down one gender to give rise to the other, whether it's males or females, you're always going to have one side of the audience that's alienated. Bob Iger, who wrote his biography, or I guess someone did, wrote in there that when he was going to purchase Lucasfilms from George Lucas, He had all of the Disney staff that go into the analytics and the stats for Lucasfilm, and he reported that Lucasfilm was predominantly a boy brand at 94% male, something like that. Now, George Lucas didn't position Star Wars to be predominantly for men. He positioned Star Wars to be a good story. He positioned it to tell a story. Now, it so happened that, especially back in the day, a lot of guys wanted to save the princess. They wanted to go off into space. They wanted to go on into an adventure. They wanted to be strong and heroic. But he wrote it so well with Luke, who didn't know where he belonged, what his next journey was. He failed many, many times in the first one and the second one. He wasn't really all that ready or all that there. He trained, and he still lost. Just like Anakin, freaking getting his butt handed to him by Count Dooku so many times, and in the Clone Wars too. So we have all of these well-written characters, and George has even addressed the fact that, Star Wars isn't for girls lately, where he literally said, I mean, you can't just throw a girl into, let me try to find
They said, there's no women in the movies. I said, who do you think the heroes are in those films? What do you think Princess Leia was? She is the head of the rebellion. She's the one that's taking this young kid that doesn't know anything and this boisterous, I know everything guy who can't do anything and trying to save the rebellion with these clowns. I said, she's the hero of the movie. And it's the same thing with Queen Amidala. Even though she has Jedi on her side, she was still the hero prime mover. And they said, well, but there's no women, I said, you can't just put a woman in pants and expect her to be a hero. They can wear dresses, they can wear whatever they want. It's their brains and their ability to think and do and plan and be logistical, and that's what the hero is.
Perfectly well said. And George nailed it right there. He said it better than I ever could. And it's from the man himself. So at the end of the day, we don't need to cater to a male or female audience. We just need to tell a good story. And with the two of them, we write the characters really well, the males and the females. And we absolutely create a badass story with synergy between the two and banter and all that, and romance if you want to put it in there. And then you get a great story. But when you sideline the men to make way for poorly written female characters, I mean, everyone would be just as annoyed if Luke was sidelined for a poorly written male character. The only reason these people who are so blind to the facts have an issue with this is because they are incapable of understanding that not everybody is racist or sexist. If you don't like The Last Jedi, then you must be sexist. If you don't like The Acolyte, you must be racist. Put white dudes in all of them. I don't care. Make the entire cast a clone of white dudes. The story is still the shit story. It's still poorly written, and the character dynamics are complete garbage. So, frankly, if Luke Skywalker had been a black dude, my God, the outpour for The Last Jedi would have been astronomical. But because he's a white guy, then all of a sudden, screw him. He doesn't need to be Luke Skywalker anymore. He's had his time in the sun, and now it's time for him to move aside. Well, okay, sure, but how about we give him a little bit more of that time in the sun that we've all been waiting for, and then he passes the torch to Rey. He puts the spotlight onto her and says, now it's your time, kid. I'm going to go off and do my own thing. And he goes off into the Force, or he goes off into another world, and we get to focus on her. And the next time we see her, we always remember how he trained her, how he was the one who essentially passed the torch, the lightsaber, down to her. And that would have been a lot more well received. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to poke fun. They not only wanted to destroy the men, make them emasculated, but they wanted to poke fun at fans for having a problem with that too, and then throw things like toxic masculinity or racism or sexism or whatever out there, which, yeah, we're not talking about like the 0.2% of weirdos. We're talking about the majority of like normal everyday fans, like you, me, your dad, your brother, your cousin, your whatever, your best friend, your boyfriend, like those guys who want to see some cool male characters too. So I don't think we need to be necessarily positioning IPs to focus on just men or to draw in men, because then again, they're going to skew the story. And when you are skewing the story for any demographic, I don't care if it's for men, women, people of color, gay people, I don't care what, you are not focusing on the most important thing at hand, which is character, which is the story. And that's where the problems will start. Let me know what you guys think about this. Personally, I think George said it best, and we need to go back to writing good stories for the sake of stories once again. Hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching. Leave a like, please, on this video, and subscribe if you're new. Check out theorysabers.com, and I hope you're excited for Vader Episode 2 coming in a few short months. May the Force be with you, always.